Welcome to the YSU Jazz Alumni Spotlight On. My name is Jim Wilpola, and I'm a 1997 graduate of the Dana School of Music at Youngstown State University, where I majored in jazz studies and saxophone. Along with Bill Bodine and Eric Dregney, of whom you've met in the first two installments of this series, we make up the YSU Jazz Alumni. Today's Spotlight On alumnus is 1995 graduate Mr. Greg Parnell. Now, Greg and I spent some time together while we were both students at YSU, and we performed in ensembles such as Jazz Ensemble 1 and the Wind Ensemble together, and like most music majors, we also became friends. After I graduated in 1997, we once again became bandmates as we toured the US, the Caribbean, and Japan with the world-famous Glenn Miller Orchestra. Now, Greg still works for Glenn Miller Productions, but in a much different capacity, and he's involved in several other musical projects in Central Florida where he now lives. To hear Greg's whole story and to hear how his experiences at YSU have helped to shape his career, let's take a ride down to sunny Florida to hear it from the man himself, Mr. Greg Parnell.
Welcome to YSU Jazz Alumni Spotlight. My name is Greg Parnell, and I'm a graduate of the Dana School of Music on the campus of Youngstown State University. I'm here today to talk to you about my experience at Youngstown State. But before we get into that, let's go back to my early music studies to let you know where it all began. I'm from Vandergrift, Pennsylvania, and I'm a graduate of the Kiski area high school. My studies there were really fantastic. I had great teachers. My first teacher was Victor Costanza, and his brother was Johnny Costa. If you've ever seen the Mr. Rogers shows and hear that great piano playing, that's Johnny Costa. So his brother Victor was my very first teacher. Then I had Mike Lamondola, who was a very demanding teacher, expected a lot of us, and was incredibly knowledgeable, especially with wind ensemble and concert band literature. So I learned a lot from Mike Lamondola. Of course, Alex Costanza, who was Victor's brother, he would teach the summer jazz camps, and I learned a lot from him as well. But probably most important is my mentor and private teacher, Scott Coder. Scott Coder was also my band director for about 5 years, from middle school through high school. And what's important to know about that is we could apply the things that I was learning in my private lessons to what we were doing in the ensembles at school, from concert band to marching band to jazz ensemble. And we did tons of reading, book after book, from concert percussion to rudimental percussion, drum set playing, big band chart reading. So he really set me up for success. And also, he gave me my first helpings of tough love, and plenty of those. Music was very important, and doing it well was very important. So I learned that at a young age, and that really set me up to have success at Youngstown State University. My senior year in high school, the YSU Jazz Ensemble came to Kiski area and did a concert. The Kiski area high school band played first, and then the YSU Jazz Ensemble. And when I heard that band, I was just knocked out. It was something really special, and the energy it blew my mind. So I met Tony Leonardi that night, and after that we started to talk about me attending YSU. So I took the audition and got a little scholarship to go to school there. So I figured, hey, this is where I want to go. That's what I want to do, is play in a great jazz ensemble. And this seemed to be the best place to go for me. So that's how it all began. And that set me up for the beginning of my experience at Youngstown State University. In the fall of 1988, I moved to Youngstown, Ohio, and started band camp. We would arrive a few weeks early before school started to do marching band camp, which was a great experience because it's a way to meet students before your classes actually start, I also met, of course, the other drummers, and Dr. Hicken was the director of the band. So it was a good experience right from the get-go. And I had some success with that because of all the studies that I had done prior to coming to YSU. So what's important about that short period there is meeting Jim Richley, who was in charge of the drum line at that point. And Jim almost immediately gave me a few gigs. So I thought, wow, man, I get to school, I'm playing, meeting nice people, and I have gigs already. So I started playing with a blues singer named Big Boogie D. And this was a great experience for me. We would play weekly at Cedars Lounge. Then eventually we had a Friday and Saturday night gig at Frida's. And I believe Frida's is still right on the edge of campus in Youngstown. So it was a great experience for me to play. We played blues music, jazz, and really just have a great time with this stuff. So I have Jim Richley to thank for that. Then classes started, and it was time to take your auditions for wind ensemble, concert band, orchestra, and jazz ensemble, of course. So for jazz ensemble, that was a big year because Tom Ruggieri had just graduated, and he was in the band for probably 4 or 5 years. So everybody else is chomping at the bit. Finally the chair is open. Who's going to get it next? So we take the auditions. There was probably about 12 of us that year who auditioned. And Jim Richley, who was playing great at that time, still is today, he was chosen. And also I was, surprisingly. So that was a big deal. We shared the chair. Of course, Jim played probably 60% of the music, with me playing the rest. But that was great because I could watch how Jim would do it and learn from that, but also have my chance as well. So that was a great experience. That was a great ensemble. And I think we've got a little sound clip here for you. At the end of that year, we did a live concert at Peabody's Down Under in Cleveland. I think it was part of the jazz festival there. And you'll get to hear from this how great that band was. This is a live recording, so of course you can't fix it. And they didn't have all the technology and magic that they do today. So what you're hearing is real. So check this out. Now, playing in the jazz ensemble that first year was really a great experience for me. And that's where I first learned about going to the original sources for some of this music that we were playing, whether it was something from the Woody Herman Orchestra or Count Basie. Tony would always program a very wide range of music. It could be something from as early as the late 20s from Duke Ellington through the big band era, your different jazz orchestras, and plenty of brand new music that was being written for the band. So a very wide range of music to study. But digging into those recordings really was an important thing. You could hear how the masters were doing it. If we were playing a Count Basie thing from the 50s or 60s, check out Sonny Payne and learn how Sonny would do it. And if you could do it like that, you're going to be okay. But one of the most important things was digging into the Thad Jones, Mel Lewis library and getting into those recordings. Prior to that, Buddy Rich is what I thought that's how you're supposed to play in a big band. And still today, Buddy Rich is one of the greats, all-time greats. People still today are trying to play like Buddy, with most of them failing. But checking out Mel Lewis was a real eye-opener, and I really latched onto that and tried to learn as much as I could. But also in rehearsals, I learned a lot about how to play with the ensemble and how to really align with the rhythms and phrase with the band. So, if they're playing something that was on top of the beat, how do I do that? If they're laying back on a section, how do I work and listen and make that happen? How do I play right with the bass player? These were things that all of a sudden were on a very high level. So I had to get that together rather quickly. But what was also great about it is by sharing that chair with Jim, I got the heat from Tony, but I also got to step aside and have Jim play where he could get the heat as well. Anyway, great experience that first year. In the middle of that year, I took an audition to get a summer job at Cedar Point as a musician, and I was fortunate enough to get a job. And I spent the summer playing there, and that was another great experience. Musically, of course, any gig at that time is a good experience for you. You learn how to play music, whether it's jazz, pop, circus, orchestral, whatever it might be. It's an important thing at that point in your life. But the main thing at Cedar Point was meeting all these different musicians from around the country. I say around the country, but mostly from Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, some from Illinois, some from Pennsylvania. And you get an idea of what's going on at their universities. Most of us were college students at the time. And you find out that YSU is right in there with those schools, and some of the stuff at YSU being actually better than what was happening at some of those schools. But meeting those other musicians was very important, and some of them still today are friends and colleagues. So that was a great experience, and that's how that year went for me. Then it was time for year number 2. So following that summer at Cedar Point, I returned to Youngstown State once again for marching band camp. And by the way, I was a music education major. So all of these different things were very important to me, from playing in the wind ensemble, concert band, marching band. I felt like I needed to absorb everything. So I went back for marching band camp. Then came time once again for auditions. And I mentioned in that first year there were about 12 drummers auditioning. Well, that second year, there were 2 of us. And that happened to be Jim Richley and myself. So 2 drummers, 2 bands. That meant I was going to the second band. Now, my immediate reaction was a little bit of disappointment because I enjoyed being in that top band. But that ended very quickly. And what I gained from being in that second jazz ensemble was it really built up my confidence. as opposed to being the young kid in the top band where I was probably a little timid and nervous. Now I was coming back to the second band with more of my peers from my age group, and I could take charge a little bit more. And that was a great experience, especially for a big band drummer. You need to have some confidence and be able to lead the band through everything. So that ended up being a great experience. Now I was playing in the ensemble with my good friends Phil Palumbi and Dave Perico and many other guys. So that's how that second year started. By the way, I was playing in a percussion ensemble, learning tons of stuff from Joe Parlink, my teacher. Some of the great stuff I learned from Joe were some tricks. I call them tricks, but ways to be smart with music. So he had great ways of marking parts, helping you with a roadmap or little notes on what to do here or how to do this. And one of the other great things is he would bring the students that were ready to play with the Youngstown Symphony. That was a professional symphony. And that was a great experience. Even if you were just playing a triangle part, bass drum part, whatever it was, to be there on the spot. David Efron was the conductor who was, world-class conductor, taught at the Eastman School of Music. It was time to play when you were there. So great experience of playing and also getting a paycheck, which you need as a student as well. In addition to that, I played in either the concert band or wind ensemble, and started to play in the orchestra. Another great experience. And then they had a chamber orchestra, a smaller group. So I was taking on all this stuff. Really, that's why I was going to school. That's what I thought in my head. That's what school was about. You're going to college to play in these ensembles. The classwork, I did my work, but that's not really what I was that into. I was there to learn about playing music. So I was very busy my second year, of course, trying to knock out some of the classes as well. And that year I decided I wanted to march in a drum and bugle corps. So I auditioned for the Bluecoats out of Canton, Ohio. Like I said, this stuff was important to me at that time, knowing that I would be a future music educator. So marched with the Bluecoats for that summer. Great experience. Glad I only did it once. It was good to do, but I needed to do other things as well. So that's how that year ended, and time for year 3. So following that summer of marching with the Bluecoats, came back to college once again, a couple weeks early, once again for marching band camp. Still having fun with that. Then time for auditions came along. Jim Richley was graduating, so I was back in the top ensemble. And that was really a fantastic band because several of the guys that were, a couple years older than me were still in the band. Mike Camiff was still in the band. Tim Leahy, Eric Dregney, Sherry Lucetti playing bass. So it was really a great band, filled with a lot of experience. And I believe that's the year that we made the recording Things to Come, which I think we'll play a little clip for you here. another fantastic experience. And, through these years, we also had great guest artists coming in from Bill Watrous, Nick Brignola, Duffy Jackson, Ray Brown came in and did a clinic, James Moody, different jazz musicians like that. So we would play concerts with them, great learning experience. Ira Sullivan came in with the piano player, and Tony and I played the concert. So that was a great experience. What was neat about that is when Ira showed up, he said, "I'll start playing a tune. If you know it, come in. If you don't. I'll go to something else." So we ended up having a really great time on that concert. But that was part of the experience at Youngstown State, where having the students be involved was really what was important. They didn't bring a guest artist in for the faculty to play with. It was for the students. And that's really, what it was all about, what it should be about. So a lot of great experiences through that. I decided to go back to Cedar Point that summer. I needed to make some money. So I went back, played in another band, made more friends, people that I worked with years after that. So it was a great experience. So I already mentioned Joe Parlink and Tony Leonardi, of course, but there were many great teachers at YSU at that time, from the different ensemble directors like the great Les Hicken, who I mentioned. I took conducting with Les Hicken, and that was fantastic. He was a great teacher, and really, especially with conducting techniques and how to look at a score and figure out what's important in a score. Great class with Les. We had Bill Slocum. Now, what was neat about that is now you have a teacher who's got real life experience. I believe he played in the Cleveland Orchestra as a French horn player. So to get that kind of insight, someone who's been there to tell you, hey, I need this from you. And he was great. He was really quite a larger than life character, but a great experience with him. John Wilcox, who conducted the chamber orchestra. Once again, another guy with real life experience, violinist, for a percussionist to learn from a violinist. It's just a great experience. Sue Sexton was a trumpet teacher there, but she also was involved in other classes. So I had done a few things with Sue. I forget, a couple small group things, some chamber groups that I would play in. And of course, Kent Engelhardt came back to YSU to finish, or to do his master's degree or finish it up. I forget what it was. And then, he started to teach there, and is still there, head of the jazz program. Kent was coming back from years of being on the road with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra. So someone else with a different view of things, and incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly intelligent person. So learned a lot from Kent. We actually rented a house from Kent and his wife. They had a second house on the north side. And that was a great experience as well, because we would have jam sessions at the house. It was, everything just seemed to work out. I was playing tons of gigs, all kinds of different music, from playing shows at different theaters or high school productions when they needed to bring in a professional group, to, like I said, filling in with the Youngstown Symphony. I began playing with Ernie Krivda's Fat Tuesday Big Band in Cleveland. We would drive to Cleveland every Tuesday night for $17 and play with a great band. I mean, some of those guys were, world class. Learned a lot from Ernie, always enjoyed doing that. So a lot of what was happening at YSU was preparing me for the real world. One example is I took an audition for the Walt Disney World All-American College Music Program that they had. They had several different groups. They had a marching band, an orchestra, and some other small groups that would perform at Walt Disney World in Florida or Disneyland in California. So I decided to take the audition for that. I thought at the time maybe I'd be the right guy for the marching band, because they would do their marching sets, then they would set up as a big band. So playing rudimental snare drum and drum set, that was right in my wheelhouse. So I thought, hey, I'm going to audition for this. Turned out that they had something else in mind, and they offered me the position to be the drum set player for the college orchestra, which is basically a studio orchestra, kind of a big band with extra woodwinds and a string section, drum set, and 2 other percussionists. So that was a fantastic experience. First of all, playing in that type of a group is really something special. To play with the strings, but also the woodwinds. At times it's more of a classical group. At times it's a swinging jazz big band. At times it's more of a pops orchestra. We worked with several different guest artists that summer, a different one each week, from Rita Morano to Rosemary Clooney, Maynard Ferguson, Dave Brubeck, you name it. Bill Conti, the great composer. A different experience each week, and gaining knowledge and experience from all these things. So that was a great one that YSU really prepared me for that. Another one, like I said, playing with the Youngstown Symphony. Sometimes there would be a guest artist, and one in particular that sticks out is Henry Mancini. So at times I would go and just watch. I'd watch the rehearsals. At the time, I'm trying to soak up everything I can at that time. So I'd go there and check out the rehearsal. This time it was Henry Mancini, and I thought, hey, this is kind of neat. But that's really all I thought about it. And he brought his own rhythm section, so it was nice to meet those professional musicians. I really liked talking to them. So we're doing the rehearsal. I'm not doing it, I'm watching. And Henry says, hey, where's the cowbell? And so Parlink looks at me and he says, hey, get up here. So all of a sudden I'm on the gig, of course, just playing maybe cowbell, playing some cymbals or bass drum, whatever it might be, just the extra percussionist. It was so neat looking back. So it's me and Henry Mancini, and I'm watching him, and I'm keeping time right with him, with the cowbell or whatever it might be. And I just look back, and I think that was really a fantastic experience. But those are the kind of things that you could do at Youngstown. You could really be involved in a lot of different musical experiences. So going back to the experience of being in the jazz ensemble, since that's what this video is all about, the YSU Jazz Alumni. Working with Tony Leonardi was really something that was very special, that almost all of us feel very fortunate to have had that experience. Of course, Tony was a great musician, first of all. He was a bass player and really knew music, knew classical music as well as jazz music. And he was very passionate about it. And it wasn't time to just, it wasn't nice time to like say, okay, what are we going to do today? Oh, that's kind of nice. Okay, let's do that. No, it was, why can't you play that? You've had all week to get that together, and you don't have it together. Like I said, there were times where there was tough love, which we needed. And that's really, a teacher's job, is to prepare you. And Tony was great at it. He, if we weren't playing in time, he knew, being a bass player, he knew how to get us to play in time. So we worked on that. I also played in the small groups, which were typically, they came out of the jazz improv classes. And we were able to dig into all that great music. And there's a course there where they go back to bebop with Bird and Diz and all the other characters from that period, and cover all the different things into the standards, into hard bop, you name it. There was a procession of classes there. So then I could really learn a lot about playing small group jazz, and that was a whole nother thing, and it required tons of listening, but that was what Tony was great at. He knew where to send you. Go check out Philly Joe Jones, go check out Max Roach, Art Blakey, you name it. He sent us there, and really learned a lot from that. He, like I said, he would include us on so many different things, whether it was bringing in a guest artist to play with us, or to have us do a tour. When we went to upstate New York on a tour, we would always do several high schools around the state and Pennsylvania as a recruiting tour. But it was also great for us, to get out and play and, to have a brief example of what being on the road might be like. We also I was on 3 recordings, and the band has recorded through the years. So the first one I did was the live recording, live at Peabody's with Jim Richley sharing the chair, and then Things to Come, and finally the 25th anniversary CD. So doing those recordings, that was another great experience that you need to learn a little bit about while you're in college. And that's what made Youngstown so great. Another great thing was when a traveling group or a contractor, whatever, was looking for musicians to play a show that was coming to town, a lot of times they would call YSU to see what students were ready. One example of that is the Glenn Miller Orchestra was between drummers, and they had a show in Westminster, Pennsylvania, and that's when they called Kent Engelhardt saying, "Hey, we need a drummer." The road manager knew Kent, and Kent said, "Hey, you got to get Greg Parnell." Fortunately, he said that. I think I still owe him some money for that. Anyway, I went over and did the gig. Great experience, great band, but I was still in the middle of school. I had to finish. Stayed in touch throughout the years, and eventually got that gig. But that's one great thing that happens at Youngstown. You get these little experiences, little introductions here. You never know how that's going to pan out later in life. So after graduating, I worked on a cruise ship, 2 different cruise ships for a while. Another great experience and a job that Youngstown State prepared me for, because they would have star acts come on every week. And you do a quick rehearsal, and then you're on that night. So that's what I was prepared for. They pass out their charts. I could read charts, and but it was made a little more broad musical selection, I guess, from maybe a jazz act to a pop thing, doo-wop, rock and roll, whatever it might be. Working with a comedian. Those were some of the things that happened on that ship. Some of the guests were Petula Clark, Eartha Kitt, Bowser from Sha Na Na, groups like that. But it was a great experience. After that cruise ship run, I finally was able to go on the road with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. And this was really what I was prepared to do. After playing in the YSU Jazz Ensemble for all those years, I was ready to play with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. So I joined the band, great musicians on the band, and a decent range, although most of us were in our 20s, early 30s. There were a few older guys as well. And of course, learning from Larry O'Brien, who had already had a great career doing other things, from playing with big bands to a great career in Las Vegas. So learned a lot from Larry, and was going to do about a year with the band. I even gave my notice. I was ready to, like I said, I was going to be a music educator. So I did that. I thought, okay, maybe it's time to go back, maybe try to find a job as a teacher. Shortly after I gave my notice, I was still on the road, and the assistant road manager gave his notice. So they asked me if I was interested in being the assistant road manager, and I figured, hey, I really didn't have anything that pressing to go to. So I took the job thinking, hey, I'm going to learn something from this as well. Maybe learn a little bit about music business, or just being a manager, and how to take charge and get things done. So I did that for the next 3 years. And what's cool about that experience with the Glenn Miller Orchestra is I was able to, either by hiring them directly by myself or recommending them, but probably to get almost about 30 YSU musicians to join the Glenn Miller Orchestra. Some of the musicians from YSU that have been on the road with the Glenn Miller Orchestra include Justin Watt, Joe Batichevsky, Greg Flew, James Suggs, Alan Cordingley, Joseph Carey, Matt Corey, Ron Coulter, Jeff Smith, Chad Gridley, Doug Cost, James Borowski, Dan Murphy, Jonathan Willis, Jeff Bush, Doug James, Sean Marco, Hardin Butcher, Jim Wilpola, Kevin Neal, Alan Mascari, Jason Rigby, Bob Matchett, and a few that were on before me were Jeff Hughes, Dave Sawal, and actually Ralph LaLama has done a few things with the band throughout the years. So that's just a short list of some of the musicians that have been on the band with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. With all those musicians from YSU being on the Glenn Miller Orchestra at different times, I really felt great about that. And it's something that we hope that still continues with musicians coming out of YSU to get a chance to play with a professional touring group. So, as I said, I was the assistant road manager for about 3.5 years, and then I decided, okay, that's enough. I need to do other things. So I decided to move to Los Angeles at that point to see what was going on, maybe study with some teachers. So I gave my notice, moved to LA. I'd already been there several times with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. I knew I would love the weather. So I went to LA, took some lessons with some different teachers, some lessons with the great drummer Zorro. So we covered a lot of different styles. Now, this is what happens with a lot of young drummers, where you need to learn all these different styles, even if you're just a drum set player. That's not even including all the classical percussion from your mallets, timpani. If you try to do it all, which we all do in the beginning, it's really quite a task. Some people can do it. It's really a ton of work. It's hard enough to be great at anything. You could just be a timpanist, or you could be a mallet player, or a snare drummer, or a drum set player. But anyway, with drum set, there's all these different styles and different genres, different types of music that you could play. At the time, I still was wide open to whatever might come my way, whether it would be playing pop music, playing in a funk band, playing in a blues band, playing jazz, whatever it might be. So I studied with Zorro, and we covered a lot of these different things. He set me up with some great things to work on. I also took a lesson with Bernie Dressel, who's also from Western Pennsylvania. Bernie has had an amazing career in LA, and he really can do a lot of different things. So I used to go and check him out when he was playing around town. Great guy, he was super nice to me, and I learned a lot just from watching him. But really, the main guy I wanted to study with was Jeff Hamilton. So I would follow Jeff around wherever he was playing, whether it was a little club or if he was playing at the theater at UCLA or playing the Hollywood Bowl. Whenever I could, I made sure I was there. If it was a club, I was sitting right in front of him, 3 feet away. And finally he said, "Hey, you're around here a lot. Looks like you're serious." So he took me on as a student, did a few lessons, and great stuff. Really digging into the music, trying to dig deeper with the jazz vocabulary, a little bit of brush work. But it was a great experience. However, I was living in LA and running out of money. So I decided to go back on the road with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. This time they had offered me the job to be the road manager. And this was great once again because now I directly did the hiring of the musicians and dealt with all the buyers, promoters. I figured I'd gain a lot of experience from doing this. So I did that for about 3.5 years. We made a few recordings while I was on the road. Played with some different groups, some of the older groups like the Four Aces, the Mills Brothers, K-Star. It was, every once in a while we would have something different. We'd play with some of the symphony orchestra. That's always a fantastic program. Once again, that was similar to the All-American College Orchestra. We have the big band and the string section. So I really enjoyed that aspect. Then I decided to get married and get off the road. So I moved to Orlando, Florida, where I was able to start working in the Glenn Miller Productions office. So that worked out well. I moved here and started to get into the local scene. I already had a few friends that helped me out. One in particular was Terry Myers. Terry was great. Terry's had a great career. Everybody around the country knows Terry and loves him. But he gave me some small group gigs. I would fill in with his big band. He had a tribute to Benny Goodman, big band. Another great experience. Very shortly after I moved here, I started to do dates with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra. So that was great because Buddy Morrow was still leading the band. So we'd take these bus trips, and I'd sit up there and talk to Buddy. Great experience. And then after a while, I decided to form my own big band. I've been thinking about it for years. Finally, I'd been filling in with other bands, and I said, you know what? I need to do my own thing. So I formed this band. And what's interesting when I look back is I really set it up in a similar way that Tony Leonardi might do it. So we do a broad range of music. Once again, from music from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. We have brand new arrangements being written for the band. We do themed concerts just like Tony might, where I study so that I can talk about who we're paying tribute to, whether it's Woody Herman, Stan Kenton, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, any of the arrangers like Bob Brookmeyer. So we do those types of things. We typically have a concert series. We've had them at different venues around Orlando. We do concerts around the state of Florida for some of the different series. We even did a special event where I took the whole band to the Cayman Islands. So that was kind of neat. We've done a couple recordings, and I think we're going to play you an example here. That first recording, what's kind of neat is I have a few arrangements that Mike Camiff did for the YSU Jazz Ensembles. So I recorded them with my own band. And the name of that first recording is You Just Made My Day. Tune that Jimmy Masters wrote, and Mike Camiff did the arrangement, and we did a recording of it, but without a vocal, so we did it with Terry Myers playing it on tenor sax. So that was that first recording that we did, and there's some great stuff on there. Then we did a second one that has some things written by some of the local guys here, as well as some other things that I had been waiting to do for a while. I stay pretty busy with that. I also am on the board of the Central Florida Jazz Society, and that keeps me busy as well. That's something that I do because I feel like that's my way of giving back. So we raise money for scholarships, and that helps the music students of today. We have a scholarship contest, and we narrow it down to 10. and then we try to give out 5 or 6 awards to help them get through school. So that's a good experience. We also do a concert series to raise money for those scholarships. So I'm on the music committee where we put together that series. So that's kind of neat to be involved. So one of the projects that I've been doing a lot with recently is a group that we put together, Jeff Bush, myself, and Charles DeStefano, who works with me. It's a group called Jukebox Saturday Night, where we do the biggest and best hits of the big band era. And we've been able to do this show all over the country. So what's neat about that, that's a Youngstown State graduate, Jeff Bush, that I've teamed up with to present these shows. So we also have included other YSU alumni to play in the group. Dave Schoaf has played with us, Jim Wilpola, James Borowski, Jason Rigby, and hopefully we'll have more that will be able to join us as the years go on here. After putting that show together, I decided to do one where we play the music of Henry Mancini. And that takes me back to the story I told you about playing with the Youngstown Symphony, standing there with Henry Mancini. So I've always been a fan of the Mancini music, and we put together this show, and it just covers all the great hits, like Moon River and the Days of Wine and Roses, of course the Pink Panther theme, the Baby Elephant Walk. Anyway, we have a lot of fun with that, and that's two things there that I've been working on recently, that we're having some success with doing these shows around the country. So that feels good. Still work for Glenn Miller Productions to this day. It's 20, almost 25 years. So things are going well. This past year with COVID has hit everybody pretty hard, but we're ready to go, and hopefully things will get back to normal sooner than later, and to keep that band on the road. I feel very good about that, doing my part to keep big band music alive. So that's basically my story. I thank all the great teachers that I had at Youngstown State University. I was there at a very special time when Tony Leonardi was there. Like I said, Joe Parlink and all the other great teachers, Dr. Gage, who's still there, just doing great stuff, and Kent's still there. So once again, thank you for everything. It really impacted my life and set me up for success. So thank you so much. That's my story.